tell me your experiences. I want to hear some. When did you start becoming aware that like this is not the way that I feel, this is somebody else?
Oh man, I'll say around 2019 because that was when I could say I went through like another major spiritual shift in my life. Like at the start of COVID, that's when it all started to happen for me, and I started like meditating more. And I was like going through a bunch of mixed emotions at the time, and then as soon as I cleared that, which is that was a very big mountain for me to get through. But as soon as I
Mhm.
cleared that, that's when I started to sense like, wait a minute, I can sense people's emotions very deeply. But I'd always
Uh-huh.
have this gift as a kid, though. That was the thing. It was just I never had the maturity, I would say, to own up to it and be like, oh, this is, not me here. But I had the compassion and the empathy as a kid in my heart to be like, want to experience people's emotions and take it on as mine. But I guess I didn't have the developed mind to just be like, identify stuff and um, stuff like that. So I'm trying to remember the first kind of things that,
Were
um,
you friends with the outcast and stuff in school?
yeah, I mean,
And you
I was
had
friends with
that,
I was actually friends with everybody, but I
yeah, yeah,
couldn't get
but you
along
had
with
a
the
heart for
outcast.
the outcast. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, I could feel
um,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So I just in general, like I've always put myself in people's shoes, like literally. And I know you can actually do that. Like, I can sense when like girls are feeling me out, like from a distance away. I can
Uh-huh.
sense when like someone's directing thoughts towards me. Like it's very odd. Like you could do it to yourself. That's a start. Like if you just bring your attention to your feet and to your hands, and you kind of just focus and start to put more focus into it, you can sense when that's happening. And so like when I started meditating, I started to notice how like that same focus would come in different
Huh.
essences, if you will. So I could feel someone's focus or direction start coming towards me. Um, but when it came to like drawing the lines between that being the person and or the person's emotions being separate from mine, when it came to drawing the line between that took a lot of work to be able to be like, it's a very subtle layer, if you will. Like I have my own feelings and I would start to feel like this, just something inside of me, like just add on to that layer. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
experienced it.
Kind of like creeping up on you,
Yeah, creeping up on me. And then
hovering. Yeah. Yep.
in a good way and good ways and bad ways, there's good
Yeah.
emotions and bad ones, but that's how I kind of experienced it. It's just a layer that happens like that. And then to be able to kind of just like not allow it to cling like that and just allow it just to like kind of just subtly be above your emotion and not necessarily allow it to attach is, I guess, what I'm training in, you could say. Um,
Well, whatever you learn, please send it my way because this is just something that I know I really am trying to learn how to do it because for years this has happened to me and I get so absorbed into like thinking about what's wrong and why I feel the way that I feel. It sends me into like a downward spiral and I let it consume me and I take it on as being my own. And I'm trying to learn how to separate it so I can just get rid of it and it don't, cling to me and stick.
I know what you mean because like I'm surrounded by, I would say, of negative energy a lot. So for me, that does send me into a downward spiral as well. Um, and for me though, it tears me because it's like either I find a way through it or I try to like dissociate from it. That's kind of
Mhm.
like what I try to do. So if I get the emotion, I'll just be like, you know what? I'll take it in as mine and I'll feel every single thing that I feel in that moment. And then what happens is I guess I've created an atmosphere in myself to where my upper head space is like open. So
Mhm.
like if there feels like there's this literal, I don't know, this just feels like an opening here, if you will.
Mhm.
And I'll feel the emotion come up and then just like come out. And so I
Hmm.
feel a lot of the time, like when I experience somebody's emotions, before in the past, it would come in and I just hold it in and then, it'd be all like angsty like that.
Yeah, it
But
happened to
now
me
it's
last
like,
night. You get all tense and shriveled up, kind of. Yeah.
yeah, that's what happened. And then, but now it's been like, I've created an atmosphere where it's just like, it just goes, but there's still some where I get all shriveled up and I'm just like, I need to like clench myself.
Yeah.
And then, but that's kind of how I dealt with it. And
See,
so
it's so
I'll just have
awesome when you meet other people that have the same experiences. That way, that you know that it's not just like you that goes through this stuff. So that's
yeah,
really
exactly.
refreshing to hear you say.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has to do with dealing with your own trauma, because if you have a certain, if something hits you and then it reacts, it creates a certain reaction in you, you could say.
Uh-huh.
If someone's emotions create a reaction within you, it kind of shows there's some kind of level of disharmony inside of you, to where you're not necessarily operating as a sovereign individual.
Uh-huh.
So instead of choosing to respond, you're kind of just reacting based off someone else's emotions, which is again, it takes a life. This feels like a lifelong process to go through, to like learn how to respond instead of react and be like emotionally like um quick to react.
I think that, like, in my case, I do have a lot of childhood trauma from like seizures, just different things I really don't want to get into. But I think that in the midst of that trauma, I think that there's like a block in the spiritual body to where it don't pass through correctly, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I'm trying to figure out how to overcome that and how to like get that block out of my body and heal myself that way that it can properly pass.
Yeah, for me personally right now, it's I have a lot of stagnation. I've cleared a lot of stuff, but the main thing for me right now is that there's such a tight um tension in my chest. Like it's so like um it's really painful, and I've been avoiding it in myself. I had a friend who, he's very intuitive. He's actually on one of my his name is Connor. He's on one of my
His
podcasts.
name's Connor. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
But him and I, we had a, oh, okay, this could be an example to where I shared it in the podcast. We talked about it. But so he was actually tripping on, oh, no, okay, no, that's another story. We'll get to this one first. Like he was we were both in a poke place. It's like a sushi place. And again, I'll keep it like this. There's two people came in. I'll keep it very general. It was two people that came in, and I noticed that he reacted. I felt in myself some kind of like uncomfortable reaction in my emotions. And at first, luckily I had like my mind clear, so I knew that that emotion did not come from me. My mind was completely clear. I felt good. Everything felt pure. And then I felt myself emotionally like just get all like angsty. I didn't react to it. I was able to respond to it and choose how I wanted to in my mind, deal with the situation. But I chose to, in that situation, kind of point out like, dude, were you feeling uncomfortable when those two people walked in? Like I asked them that, and then he's like, yeah, how'd you know? And then I was like, that's when
Because
you
you
kind
felt
of
like he was
opened up.
feeling.
What?
Because you were feeling what he was feeling.
Yeah, exactly. I felt it as if it was me too. So okay, I'm trying to piece together stuff. But going back to my first point I was talking about, like there's this very tight tension in my chest that makes me stagnate. I don't know where it comes from, but it makes me stagnate. And I know that if something, I don't know what could break me or make that tension in my chest come up to the surface, but I know that there can be situations in my life that God might put me through to where now this tension is going to come up, and this high charge of emotions is going to come up in some situation, and I have to deal with it and purge it out of myself. So I've been doing a lot of inner work, so nothing really bothers me that much. But I know that the next thing for me to deal with when it comes to my evolution is that there's some other energies that I kind of make me uncomfortable in my own self. But I'm willing to like go the extra mile every single day. I'm doing this stuff. So I'm that committed to mastering my own emotions and self and clearing.
In what
stuff.
situations do you feel that heaviness on your chest, like that? Does it kind of make it feel like it's a little bit harder to breathe, like it's a little restricted, and you kind of just feel? What situations do you feel that in?
I don't.
I've
Well,
walked into people's houses where it kind of takes my breath away and it collects on top of my chest.
yes, when I'm home, that's a big one. Um,
When you're home,
yeah,
it
and
sounds like
then
your house needs to be cleansed.
yes, to be
No,
honest,
really.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It's no, but it's hard to be honest. It's very hard though. This I'm in a situation to where it's literally almost impossible to do that, just because I live with 6 other people and my house is pretty small. So it's not like if I do, I've done it. I have sage and stuff. So I've tried to clear it, but it just keeps getting backed up again. And I'm just
It's
like, what the?
mingled energy. I'm not saying anything about the people that you live with. I don't even know them, but it's something that probably contradicts something in your aura. Therefore, you can feel it in your atmosphere. When you live with other people, you can't control everything that goes out. So
Yeah,
I understand when you say you can't really completely cleanse it.
exactly. Yeah. So um, that's the main thing though. When it comes to like dealing with emotions and energy, stuff like that, it's just you kind of notice when those charges come inside of you. And I liked how you talked about you bring it into the light. So I don't necessarily know how to fully pull those, like if someone had like you could say an anxiety, right? And it enters into me. I know that you can take your attention or take your consciousness, or just like how you would bring your awareness from your hand to your, um, you can like just do it without moving your arm. You can take your attention from the base of or from the tip of your fingertips all the way to your shoulder. Like you can consciously do that. So when
Mhm.
someone's anxiety comes into you like that, you can kind of take that same mechanism and just shoot it out to something. I know that you
Mhm.
can get to that level to like control it like that. And then when you say bring it to light, I wouldn't necessarily know how to penetrate into that level of light to where I can take someone's emotion or soul into that. Well, I could say I've done it once maybe, but it wasn't like I was intentionally doing it. I had this one friend he was going through a lot of depression and suicide or let me back up. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't say friend. It was just someone that I knew at the time. And he was like, "Oh, like, can you take me to your church?" And I thought to myself, I was like church, like I was against church. I was very hurt by it. So I was like,
Mhm.
but also like I knew that there's also to church he would get trapped as well. So
Mhm.
I was like, nah, like you and me, we can go to the park and I'll help you out. And at the time though, I was very spiritually low. Like I was at such a low vibration, but I was like, I can take care of this. And then we
Mhm.
went to the park, and then I started praying for him. I started praying for Jesus to, deliverance, stuff like that, casting out those
Mhm.
spirits. And every time I prayed for him, I said like a prayer, a couple lines. He would notice that his vision started getting lighter or clearer and
Yeah.
brighter.
Yep.
And then I kept doing it till he finally broke through, or I just kept doing it. And then he started noticing that his body started vibrating very intensely. And then next thing you know, like he opened his eyes again. He's like, "Hey, I see a white light." And then that brought me back to my experience when I was in the shower praying
The
and I
white
saw a
light.
white light. I was like, okay, like close your eyes, wait for that thing or wait for something to happen. Something's going to happen. And then probably after a couple of minutes, he opened his eyes again. He's like, I saw like, yeah, he had a vision, but he saw like these dark entities surrounding him. And then they're surrounding him. I think, was he in a cave? No, they're just surrounding him, and there's just dark
Mhm.
presence around him. And then he saw these 3 people on white horses with shining bright faces come out of nowhere, and then these things just started to scatter. And then from there, he saw a book open up, and then it opened up to chapter 1. And then there's the whole book of his. I don't know sure if it was of his life or something, but he just saw a book open up to chapter 1, and then that was the
That's
experience.
powerful. That's really powerful. But he don't know what the book was.
Nah, I don't know if I try to get more out of him, but I guess he was too. It was I
Too much for him.
yeah, it was something new. You experience something new. It's kind of like you kind of just focus on like what the heck's happening, and you can't necessarily describe. Like if I try
Some
to
people have the
question him,
most powerful experiences and they just want to try to and I'm not saying he did, but a lot of people like trying to like rationalize, like, okay, you know, I made that up, or and then they don't want to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about bringing it to the light, I think that some people have that power to penetrate into those higher dimensions and take someone there, which takes a lot of courage, like, or facing those fears and things like that. Like, personally, I had to face his demons. Like,
Yeah.
and anybody who wants to like do deliverance on people, you have to face those demons as well. And I think that sometimes people put, and even myself, I became more conscious of this as doing it back then. I used to do deliverance. I don't really do it anymore, to be honest. But sometimes I would face demons that I wasn't ready to face. And then it would send me down into a dark downward spot, or a downward spiral. So I think that, yeah, you kind of have to like know where you're at and kind of take little baby steps or shifts if you need to into the right direction with, you
I,
know, all this stuff.